Hello and welcome to Tips from the Triangle, your weekly gardening show with me. I am the artist AmarA. I'm not an expert on gardening, but I love to garden. I love to plant things. I love to explore and experiment, learn new things, read new things, and to talk about it and share what I discover with you. Do you know one of the things that I love is when I drive down a street that I've never been down before. I was on the south side and there was construction, and so I ended up going down all these streets that I've never driven down before and coming across a really great garden. There is this house up there where they've got daisies and black-eyed Susans and all types of flowers. Sweet peas climbing through everything. And the great thing is that they've got a garden in their yard, and then they've got another garden between the sidewalk and the road. And then there's like a little pathway that goes to the road from the sidewalk. And then they've got another garden beyond that between the sidewalk and the road. I love those. I love a garden between the sidewalk and the road. I think that is just, it just adds some je ne sais quoi. You know, it's just really nice. All right. Well, that's one of the things that I noticed. I just love looking at other people's gardens and getting ideas and getting inspired, and also being a little bit envious and thinking, oh, my gardens don't look that good. But that's okay. We're still working on it. All right. Before we start today, let us take a nice deep breath. You ready? Well, this is the time of year where everything is growing and going. Not to say that you can't start new plants, but for the most part, what's going to be started is pretty much started. The nice thing about a year like this where there's been lots of rain is that it is possible to start new plants. I'll be honest, I put a pumpkin plant out that really should have been planted months ago, but it's growing. Why not? You know? There's still time to throw seeds around and get some fall flowers. And if you're working on things that are for houseplants or for bringing inside, it's never too late. And I find that when it's a really, really dry summer, I have a much more difficult time getting things started. But this summer, it's really humid, it's really moist, and so starting seeds should be easy peasy. So you can work towards the winter garden of your dreams. Whatever that looks like. If I'm honest with you, I started some cacti seeds this year. I've never tried growing cactuses before. In fact, I don't have any cactus plants. I grow a lot of succulents, but not so much with the cactuses. But we saw seeds when we were going to get seeds at the Agway, and I thought, hey, why not? For $2, why not? That sounds like crazy fun. I didn't even know you could grow cacti from seeds. I mean, obviously most things do, but it just hadn't occurred to me to think about it. And so I looked up some tutorials. I followed the steps to start them, and a whole bunch of them started. I've got 3 little pots with like 2 or 3 little tiny cacti in them. They are the most adorable things. And they've got all these little spikes on them. They're so cute. And I'm so excited to keep going on this journey with these little tiny plants. I really want them to grow big and strong and to find out what happens with them. And I've still got some cactus seeds, and I'm thinking that now is the time to start another set of them to be going on with in the winter. I like to have a couple of plants in the winter. I have a generally difficult time with house plants in the summer. Like, I kind of think that my brain takes a holiday and it thinks, well, it rained outside, so obviously they should be fine. Like, that suddenly gets them water. And so I really only keep a couple few next to the sink. Those are the ones I do a good job taking care of. And other than that, like, all of the plants go out of doors as much as possible. And in another month or two, it'll be time to start figuring out who's coming inside, where they're going to live, how that's going to work. And over the winter, I do okay with houseplants. I do better than I used to. And that's something. You know, I mean, if we're not working towards being the person that we want to be, then what are we doing? And maybe me wanting to be the kind of person who has a bunch of houseplants is simple and silly, but it genuinely makes me happy. My plants make me happy. Growing things makes me happy. And being the kind of person who's capable of taking a moment, remembering to take a moment, go around, talk to my plants, give them some water, see how they're doing. I think when I think of being that person, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel whole. I suppose that's what we're working towards. And we're working towards food. How's that transition? How'd I do on that one? Little rough. She may have to settle for the bronze. I'm trying to segue into storing the harvest. What we are doing with all of the food that we're all getting out of our gardens. So every year we have a little bit of a surplus. I think that for myself, we've gotten a little bit better at not having a massive, massive surplus of food because I was not capable of storing a lot of it. But there are definitely things that are going to come out and be stored. We've got sweet potatoes, we've got regular potatoes, there's going to be onions. Who knows how the cucumbers are going to go. I lost one this week, just up and died. But the other one's doing fine. Maybe it will suddenly come through and have tons and tons. There's going to be corn. There's going to be all types of things. And those are things that I definitely want to save. There have been past years where I grew a lot of things because I liked growing them, but I didn't really know what to do with them once I had them. You know, like tomatoes. I love growing cherry tomatoes. I love going out and grabbing a handful of them and eating them. But then when you've got 4 or 5 plants and they're all fruiting at the same time and you're like, what am I supposed to do with all of this extra? And so one year I decided to try to make tomato sauce. I don't even eat tomato sauce. I don't like it. I like my pasta with salt and butter. That's it. But I decided, oh, well, I have all these tomatoes. I'm going to try to make tomato sauce. And as it turns out, that takes hours and hours and hours and hours of boiling it. And then I had to figure out how to can it. And it was a crazy experiment. I'm glad I did it. And I don't think I'll ever do it again. One year I had cucumbers and I learned how to pickle. That I liked. I really liked it. I learned a lot about the different kinds of pickling, how to pickle. And with pickling, I think that canning is a little bit easier because the pickle brine itself is a preservative. But this is to say that there's a lot of different ways to preserve the food that you're growing. And it kind of depends on what you want to do with it. And it depends on what you're planning on doing with it, as well as what the food is itself. So let's take apples, for example. So you can store fresh apples for quite a while, as long as there are no bad ones. As soon as one gets bruised and starts to go bad, it releases a gas that makes the other apples around it go bad as well. So that's why one bad apple spoils the bunch. That's where that comes from. So you can do fresh storage if you have some place adequate to store them, someplace cool and dry, like a basement. You can cut them up and dry them. Dried apples, absolutely. Who doesn't pay a ton for those at Trader Joe's? Not me. And we don't have a Trader Joe's where we live. And even if we do, I wouldn't spend a ton on them. But point being, that's a method for storing them. You can also freeze them. Now, you can't freeze whole apples that I know of. I don't think it works. But what you can do is make apple mash, or you can make like apple pie filling, which is just like chunks of apples. Either way, what you're doing is boiling them down until they're soft, putting them into some sort of container, probably, ideally, like a vacuum sealed freezer bag, and then freezing that. That's my method. I love to do that. One of the things that I really like is to make like a applesauce, but without any sort of seasoning in it. So it's just like, it's not pureed apple because I didn't puree it. It's just boiled apples. And then when I take it out and unfreeze it, then I add whatever seasonings I want to it. And, brown sugar and maple and some nutmeg and a little bit of cinnamon. And oh, so good. But that way I can do what I want with it. It's not already seasoned. Alternately, you could do a bunch of different seasonings with them. And so you could be like going to your freezer and looking through lots of cinnamon, lots of nutmeg, all the brown sugar, super mapley. The point is to label them well and to label them with when you did it. When you start doing this year after year, unless you are really religious about going through at a certain time and date and emptying everything out of your freezer and starting fresh, you can end up with some things that you're like, when's the last time I did pumpkin puree? Is this from the last time I did pumpkin puree, or is this from the time before that? How old is this? And of course, frozen things can last for quite a while if they're vacuum sealed, but still, there is still a shelf life. You can do the same process and can it instead. So you can make an applesauce. You can make, a chunky apple filling, and you can can that. I actually, when I did can, I used to make kind of an applesauce with one kind of apple that, really renders down very well. And then after that was starting to get down to being sauce-like, I would add in a bunch of chunks of a different kind of apple that would stay really chunky. And that was so good. So good. Canning is more challenging in that you have to make sure that everything is really well sanitized. And you have to do the pressure canning part of it correctly. So you put the things in, you put in whatever food you're going to have in there to a certain level. You close up the cans, you put the lid on, but you don't close it all the way. And you put that in a vat of water. And at a certain time, you close the can and you boil it for a certain amount of time, etc., etc. And some of that depends on like your altitude, and it's very scientific, which is great because it means that there's a specified series of steps that if you do these steps properly, you will end up with something that is sanitized and that will keep in your cupboard for a long time. However, if you're like me and maybe you skimp a little bit on some of the steps, then you're going to end up with something that is unsafe. Be warned. That being said, beginner kits for canning are easily accessible. You can get canning stuff at almost any grocery store, and there are lots of good YouTube tutorials that will take you through those steps. And if you're the kind of person who can follow steps and be clean and careful about what you do, then canning just might be something that you really enjoy. I know lots of people who really, really love it. One of the things that I love is the things that I don't have to do much with. Not because I'm lazy, but because the things that I freeze go in the freezer. I don't really see them. You know, I've been going blueberry picking for the last month, and when I go blueberry picking, I come home and I've got like 3 to 4 pounds of blueberries. And I freeze about half of them, and the other half goes into the fridge, and then I munch on it for the next 2 to 4 days. And then I have to go blueberry. I'm like, oh, I'm out. How did that happen? Let's go blueberry picking again. And so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. I feel the same way about canning. When I did canning, you know, you put them on a shelf in the pantry, and there they are. And they're kind of out of sight, out of mind. Right now, I feel like our kitchen is very bare and very clean because there's not really anything much hanging in it. We have one thing of garlic that we're leaving hang there and have done for years so that it'll completely dry out into black garlic. But other than that, like, we don't really have anything hanging, because we got rid of everything in the spring when things started growing. And so we took out, you know, the onions, whatever onions we don't use, just go back into the garden. Go grow some more. Whatever herbs we don't use, go out into the compost pile. We don't need the dried herbs anymore. We can go out, we can pick mint, we can pick catnip, we can pick all of the herbs that we grow. But soon, that won't be the case anymore. And it's time to start getting things ready that are going to be dry stored in our kitchen. I really, really love, there are a couple things that I love doing in the fall. One of them is braiding onion tops. I think I probably read about it as a child in like Laura Ingalls Wilder, and it stayed with me as something beautiful, something of the autumn, something of the harvest. And we love onions. We use onions a lot. And so having some braided onions just hanging on the wall, drying, is so cool. I really like it. I like the accessibility of having the onions. I like being able to save on not having to go buy onions. And I like the way that it looks in a kitchen. It looks like food wealth to me. You know, there are some things that you need. And when you have a bunch of it just set aside, ready to be used, that, you know, it's not stuff that you set aside and never use. It's stuff that you have a lot of and you use every day. Like when you're paper towel rich, you know, when you suddenly find a sale and get one of those massive things of like 8 paper towels and you're like, I am paper towel wealthy. That's how I feel about onions in the fall. Once I've braided them and put them on the wall, I feel like, we are rich in onions. I also like doing the corn. So the corn that we grow is visually aesthetic. It's decorative. That's not to say that it's not edible. things that are called decorative corn are actually either flour corn or flint corn. It's just not popping corn. That's it. Not that you can't pop flint corn, you can pop flint corn, you can pop flour corn. They all pop to some greater or lesser extent. Just popping corn pops best. Flour corn works best for flour. Flint corn is very, very hard. It also makes good flour. But they're all used for different things. So we grow corn that's visually decorative. We don't grow popping corn and we don't grow sweet corn. Mostly because sweet corn is so widely available that it seemed crazy. Like, I live out in a rural area, and everywhere you go in season, some people have got like carts out by the road and they're selling sweet corn for a pittance. So it seemed crazy to grow that. And I love having decorative stalks and decorative corn to give friends and family to sort of kick off the colder season. Do you know? Like, harvest comes, you're gathering things in, and you're feeling the food wealth of having created this food, collected this food, figured out a way to store this food. And you want to share it with other people. You want to feel that camaraderie, the community. You want to build and strengthen your community ahead of the cold, dark times. And going around and giving bundles of corn is one of the ways that I do that. I used to take like half of the corn that I grew and make mush with it. That's what I called it. I would get not quite as fine a powder as like a flour by putting it through a coffee grinder. And I would put that in boiling water and let it soak for a while. And it would make this, it's kind of like grits. And I would put maple syrup and salt in it. And it was really good. I enjoyed it. But it was very difficult to get the corn down to flour. And it kept on killing coffee grinders. And then we discovered that with the last coffee grinder, it was like chipping away the plastic inside, and that was like going into my food and into my person. And so we just stopped doing that. And all of the corn now goes to being saved for next year's corn and being given to friends and family as a community building, symbol of the harvest, decorative thing that they can put on their doors. And the way that we do that is we shuck the corn partially so that all of that is up at the top. Get 2 or 3 of those, and then take some ribbon or some yarn and put it around so that 3 of them, where the corn meets the husk, is all tied together with a nice bow and a way to hang it in the back. I've developed this over years. There's a loop in the back to hang it. It's tied together with a nice bow. It looks lovely. And when those are hanging up, I know that if I needed to use those to make flour, to make mush, to make cornbread, I could absolutely do that. They're there. I might not intend to use them for that, but if it came to it and I needed to use them for that, I have them. So those are something that I saved to be seeds for next year, but most of the things that I harvest and save are things that I'm going to use every day. So I am going to keep eating fresh blueberries until my blueberry place says that they're done for the year. I will go there every 3 to 4 days pick fresh blueberries, 2 to 4 pounds, bring them home, eat them. But the minute that that's done, the minute that they're closed for the season, then I start going to the frozen blueberries, and that's what's going to go into my oatmeal. That's what's going to go into blueberry muffins. That's the thing that I'm going to use as my blueberry supply moving forward. And that's like a weekly thing. When the blueberries are done, it's going to be apple season. And the grocery store near us usually does bin apples that are fantastic for turning into applesauce. There are lots of places that you can go pick your own apples or that have reduced prices during apple season. So you can just get a ton of apples and really preserve the harvest. You know? I encourage you, figure out what foods you would enjoy preserving. You don't have to preserve everything. You don't have to try to do everything all at once. Just try one thing this year and see how it goes. And no matter what, my friends, I hope that you keep growing. Hello, my podcast friends. Let us have a super secret post-show podcast only jam. Fuck yeah. So sometimes when I do the show, I have an idea what I'm going to talk about, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about this, and then I'll transition to talking about this, and then I'll wrap up by talking about this. And what ends up happening is that I talk so much about one of those things that the other things kind of, the music starts playing for the outro, and I'm like, I will talk about that next time then. Super fun, great, love that. But now I have the super secret post-show podcast only section, and I can just like go on to the next thing. So I was going to neatly transition from talking about corn and the way that I preserve it into the way that I preserve seeds for the next year. Clever, right? Because the corn seeds, the corn cobs that I save are the seeds for next year's corn. Ta-da! But obviously, most things I don't hang up on my kitchen wall to save for next year. That's pretty much a things to eat thing, putting things up on the kitchen wall. What I do to collect up the seeds is I use paper bags. And this works pretty gangbusters for most seeds. The only seeds that I've found that it really doesn't work for are like really teeny tiny round seeds. So poppy seeds tend to get out of the paper bags. I've tried a 2 paper bag method and that works okay. A paper bag inside a plastic bag works better. What I don't like to do is seal them away. I don't like to seal them in a plastic bag. I don't know what the environment is inside of the plastic bag, and I don't know if it'll be good for the seeds. And so I just don't do that. You never really get seeds in a plastic bag, so I assume that it's not great for them. Like the packets that we get are all like paper packets. So I assume that that must be the ideal method. Perhaps I mistook. And certainly there are much better paper bag designs than like the lunch bags that I'm using for this particular purpose. I recognize that. But for most things, the paper bag works great. So the way that I do it is when you see that the seeds are turning brown, right? So you've had the flour melted away, and now there's this green thing in its place. It's a weird thing, depending on what kind of flower it is. It's a different shaped, weird thing. And that thing stays green for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks, and then suddenly it'll start to turn brown. And then it'll turn really brown. And when it's really brown, the seeds are ready. And this is true for things that have the seeds on the inside, like butterfly milkweed. Butterfly milkweed has a pod, and when the pod turns brown, the seeds inside are ready to go. It usually dries out and opens up by itself, and you'll see the white fluff. Other things have the seeds just right on the outside. My marigolds have the seeds right on the outside. My black-eyed Susans, seeds on the outside. Daisies, seeds on the outside. Either way, what you do at that point is cut that seed pod off and stick it in the paper bag. Just like that. You don't break it up. You don't, if it's, like the milkweed, you don't try to get it out of the pod necessarily. I will be honest with you, milkweed is an odd one. I don't save milkweed pods. Milkweed, we let go to the wind, or we'll try to put it in a specific place where we want it in the fall. And we've been really, really successful with that. We have a lot of milkweed on our property in different spots. And I'm trying to encourage it to go to a couple other spots where I want tall gardens. But generally speaking, letting the milkweed do its thing, helping it out, sending the seeds forth, sending a bunch of seeds down low into a garden where you want them in the fall tends to work really, really well because those are early starters. But for a lot of the seeds, I've found that it doesn't work so well to try to get them to self-seed or even help them to self-seed because of rodents, I think. And don't get me wrong, I struggle with rodents because I don't want them in my house, obviously. But I live in a rural setting. There are rodents, and they're allowed. They're serving a particular function in nature, and they should be there, and I don't want to banish them from my lands entirely. But I don't fucking want them in my house. So what I try to do is harvest the seeds closer to the house to begin with and leave the seeds further away to encourage the rodents to go further away, live where the food is, while I keep the area right around the house as clear of seeds as possible, except for the things that I want self-seeding. It seems to be an okay system. I'm not rodent free. And the plants that I encourage to self-seed tend to grow back. So that's going well. It does okay. It does okay. Vegetables and getting the seeds off of them can be a lot more challenging. And I've found that because I buy my vegetables, some of my vegetables I start on my own from seed. Some of them I get at various places like the grocery store. And the ones that I tend to get from the grocery store do not have heirloom seeds. So heirloom seeds are ones that you can harvest and plant and they'll grow the next year. But they can also modify things so that they won't grow. And the vegetables that I tend to get at like the grocery store or sometimes, at other big box stores, they tend not to be heirloom seeds. So you can try saving your seeds from, the plants that you buy already started, but it's a mixed bag. You might not get them. Drying them can be quite an event. So harvesting seeds like peas or beans, easy peasy. It's really just like flowers. But harvesting seeds from things like tomatoes can be a lot harder because that's a very juicy thing. And you want it to dry out, but you don't want it to dry out too much. You don't want it to get too hot. If it gets too hot, that'll kill off the seed. So what I tend to do is try to leave things on the vine as long as possible, and then get the ones that kind of dried out on the vine and save those to plant next year. And remember, from like one tomato plant, you could get thousands of tomato seeds. It's amazing the amount of seeds that you get back from one plant started from one seed. So you can go out and harvest the seeds from your flowers and be wealthy with seeds. I talked about feeling rich earlier. Honestly, nothing makes me feel more wealthy than when I have got all of the seeds that I'm going to get, like bags full of seeds, and it's insane. Like, even if I planted every square inch of, what's not grass right now, next year, I could fill acres. And so one of the things that I tend to do is pack up some seeds, make little packets of seeds for Christmas, and give them to friends. I find that people that I already know are interested in gardening, who are trying to garden, tend to really, really enjoy and appreciate it. And for people that you're not sure where they're at in their journey, you can always try giving them like a full kit. Try giving them a planter, maybe one that you like, did a paint and sip and painted yourself, or a paint and sip where they can do a planter with you. Super duper fun, loving that. But I give them the dirt that they'll need. I give them instructions. I give them the seeds. And, if that's not their thing, no worries. Tell them, pass it on, pass it on to somebody that you think will enjoy it. Because I like gardening a lot, and I know that it's not everybody's thing in the way that it's my thing. But I do think that there is some sort of plant that is for everybody. You just got to find the right plant at the right time for someone to enjoy gardening. And maybe that's because it fits into their lifestyle, or because it's chamomile and it smells good, and they've started drinking chamomile tea every night and they really love it. They love having the fresh flowers. Or maybe it's a baby cactus. Who knows? Who knows? But, you keep trying, and you keep doing your thing and sharing it with the people that you love, in a way that is loving and encouraging without pressuring. And hopefully everybody finds the thing that they like to garden, and we can all garden together. And on that very idealistic note, I am going to end this, post-show podcast only special. You guys fucking rock. Do the thing, like it, subscribe, share it, and no matter what else, keep growing.